Crawl.
Wow, man, what a show. I just finished watching all of season 1 of the new Fallout TV show, and honestly, it was absolutely amazing. The story, the characters, funny jokes and lore, along with the set pieces were all wonderfully placed, and I'm glad that we finally got a good video game to TV show adaptation, along with it doing a really good job of setting up a season 2. So while we talk about the new show, discuss the first episode, some lore pieces, and the new characters, why don't you go down and investigate that subscribe button, since we're on the way to 600 subscribers now. But seriously, this video is going to contain non-spoiler and a spoiler section because hey, all of you deserve to be able to see this. So sit back and relax. Let's all explore the tale of Vault 33 in the year 2296. The first episode starts off pretty straightforward. We get a slight glimpse of life before the bombs at what seems to be a birthday party with the introduction of our first true character in the form of a man named Cooper Howard, a veteran of the US Marines turned actor right before the world ended, not only starring in some pre-war films that could still be found all these years later somehow, but he also did some old photo shoots for Vault-Tec, even the famous thumbs up pose. The episode moves to show that when LA was being bombed, he didn't exactly have anywhere to go, and just like another Vault-Tec rep that most of us are familiar with, poor Howard here had to survive all the way to 2296 the hard way due to either not being able to make it to a vault or simply being rejected from one altogether. However, after a taste of life before disaster, it jumps 219 years later where we finally get to meet our second main character, Lucy. Lucy has lived in Vault 33 her entire life, whether it be farming, teaching, construction, or even doing really weird shit with her cousin.
Messing around with your cousin, it's all well and good for kids, but it's not a sustainable long-term sexual practice, you know?
Vault 33 seems to be perfect. We catch up with her as she's getting ready to meet her new husband, a man she's never met before in an arranged marriage. See, Vault 33 has a very finite amount of people, so logical rules that folks like me and you would follow don't exactly get followed down there. So to prevent inbreeding from happening, Vault 33 and 32 would each select a person from their vault to marry the other and start the repopulation process, with this seemingly being the only time the residents from the vaults actually end up seeing each other. However, as Lucy goes to meet her new mystery man, we come to see the really shitty state Vault 32 is in compared to 33. You see, there's peeling paint, scratched walls, even the 32 residents look rough and scarred, looks absolutely terrible. But after Lucy and her new husband finally meet each other, they both go back to Vault 33 to have their wedding. Eventually, the wedding ceremony ends, Lucy gets plowed by the man she met literally 30 minutes ago, and after everything is said and done, discovers something terrible. Those were not residents of Vault 32. Those were raiders. Wedding turns from party to panic as the residents attempt to fight off the raiders. While the raiders do eventually get captured, or at least some of them, the rest end up dying, fighting the vault dwellers, and funny enough, when one of the dwellers ends up talking to the raiders, calling him a monster for killing the residents of Vault 32, the raider states that whatever went down in the vault makes the raiders look like angels, seeming to insinuate that something happened long before they arrived. Now, while the leader does kidnap Lucy's dad and eventually flees the vault, bombing the entrance from 32 to 33, the remaining 33 vault dwellers do try to figure out what to do as our hero Lucy bands together with a few friends to eventually leave the vault and begin searching for her dad that was kidnapped. It's also in that same episode where we get our first look at the Brotherhood of Steel, where we meet our final main character-ish, Maximus, who's training in the local Brotherhood of Steel encampment when later he finds out that one of his friends got promoted to a squire, a position that would have her going out into what they call the wilds. This of course makes him upset since it wasn't him, and we flash forward to the next morning when his friend is now screaming in pain, takes off her boot to find out the giant razor blade was seemingly jammed into the bottom of her shoe, and she instead gets sent to the med bay. Maximus gets taken for interrogation as Knight Titus is seemingly leaning over him as some sort of intimidation force. Maximus explains that while he didn't put the razor blade in her shoe, he isn't exactly upset that it happened, seemingly out of jealousy, and if we fast forward just a little bit more and on the verge of being exiled, Maximus states how thankful he is for the Brotherhood giving him a home when nobody else would, and how he would be willing to give his life and everything it stood for in order to serve the Brotherhood. This ends with him being the new squire, and the episode closes with the information that a member of the Enclave has seemingly taken a piece of dangerous technology and it must be recovered at all costs. Now look, episode 1 was fun. crazy. From the view of life before the war, which seems simple yet tense, with those that have been keeping their nose to the ground worried about the looming threat of the bombing, to what life in the vaults was actually like. Which, side note, let me explain real quick for those of you who are thinking of watching this show knowing very little about the Fallout series. To make a long, and I do mean very long story short, in the year 2077 on October 23rd, the United States as they knew it was nuked heavily after a war for Alaska and the United States doing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. However, a company named Vault-Tec promised the American citizens the hope of a better future underground via the vaults. A bunch of underground bunkers that sometimes didn't make their occupants want to go to sleep and never wake up again. See, the idea of the United States being hit in this universe at least was always in the back of people's minds, never a for sure thing, but they're all the same. But regardless, the people in these vaults are underground, usually for decades if not centuries. This is the situation Lucy's vault is in, and can be one of the reasons everyone in Vault 31, 32, and 33 all sound a little off. They've been disconnected from the rest of the world for hundreds and hundreds of years at this point, learning nothing but Vault-Tec propaganda and information. You know, compared to everyone above ground, there is a reason they all seem a little different when compared to people like you and me. Now look, if you want to look at it from a first episode standpoint, the Fallout show is really good, not just from someone who's played the games, but even from someone who has never had anything to do with Fallout. I genuinely think you would enjoy it. With me personally giving the first episode an 8 out of 10. It was a fantastic show, and I think you should go watch it. However, real quick, I do want to take a small break to say this is where spoilers happen. If you want to go watch the show first, then come back to hear my final thoughts. Hey man, that's cool. Thanks for stopping by, and I really hope you enjoyed it. However, here we go. Now, obviously, for those of us who have finished it, or for those of you who simply don't care, it's hard to mention the Fallout show without arguably its biggest issue regarding some of the fans, and that's the inconsistency regarding Shady Sands, the NCR, and Fallout New Vegas, just to name a few. Alright, just hang on a second. Now, I'm going to tackle some of the biggest inconsistencies between the show and the games, because honestly, that's probably what you've heard about the most. So let's just rip the band-aid off and address the elephant in the room. Is Fallout New Vegas canon? Now, for those of you who just heard those words, you're starting to get a little pissed off. Within the show, we get introduced to this chalkboard graph that seems to state the history of Shady Sands, a location that should ring a bell to many of you Fallout fans out there. And in this graph, it seemingly shows the downfall of Shady Sands in 2277, only to be nuked shortly after. Yes, Shady Sands is completely destroyed. Enter the problem you're starting to notice, and that should be that, at least according to the established lore, that should be impossible. See, thanks to Fallout New Vegas, we know exactly what was going on that year. Caesar's Legion and the NCR were battling it out over the Hoover Dam, and just to make things worse, not but 4 years later when playing Fallout New Vegas, you come to find out that Shady Sands is fine, everything considered. How can an entire city get bombed back to the Stone Age and seemingly nobody know about it by the time New Vegas kicks off, right? But there's another side of this mess. See, bringing up the sign again, it doesn't technically say when this nuke went off, only that it went off shortly after 2277. Everything else seemingly has a date except for this one nuke, so that, at least according to what the graph says, should just say when Shady Sands was falling, and even then, a city falling could mean almost anything in this instance. But the point that I'm trying to make is, at least to me, the graph seems to be showing that shortly after the city fell, whatever that means, that the city was nuked. Fallout New Vegas takes place 4 years after, in 2281. Let's give everyone's favorite mailman a year to wrap up his New Vegas arc and say, I don't know, that boom, a year after the New Vegas storyline is concluded, Shady Sands was nuked. Now, yes, this isn't a perfect solution. I'll be the first one to admit it. However, this would place the bombing after Fallout New Vegas at just 5 years later, but still before the events of Fallout 4 and even before the Fallout TV show. Now, while I'm not too sure why this isn't just stated, as in the show it seems like a quick way to solve a lot of headache, or at least some of it, but hey man, maybe we'll get a more secured answer in season 2, because this is a pretty big deal, man. You know, Shady Sands, especially for the NCR, holds a lot of significance. That's a capital city. It can't just disappear while everyone's over in New Vegas. That doesn't make any sense. But if they were to manage to go back and change it to say the place got nuked sometime after the Fallout New Vegas storyline concluded, you could still have New Vegas as it is canon without changing too much. Now, there's still more inconsistencies that have to be addressed. But as far as the biggest one that everyone's talking about, I think there is a way to fix this. It would just take a little bit more tweaking. Now, does this mean the show is bad and the series as a whole is terrible? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. And I think it would be pretty stupid to disregard the entire series off a few inconsistencies. But here's the biggest issue. This isn't just a show, it's a show that's canon to the games. Yes, the events of the TV show, like it or not, happened. But if you're inserting a show straight into a pre-established video game universe, in my opinion, you have to respect the current lore that's already been established. Now, mind you, this is just the first season. I expected there to be a lot of loose ends. I mean, it's season 1 for a reason, right? But I'm also not going to sit here and lie to all of you if I said I wasn't at least a little scared that this may happen again in the future, or if it gets really out of hand, that it's just never ever mentioned again. Because if we get future seasons that just take away major plot points or people regarding the games it's inserting itself into, it's going to be really hard to consider this canon, because what are we supposed to believe? The show or the games it's inspired from? Hey there everyone, post-edit Starlight here, and funny enough, with the Fallout show being as big of a success as it was, it ended up bringing huge success to the games, bringing in tons of players experiencing the game all the way from Fallout 1 to Fallout 4. This is fucking awesome to hear about, and me personally, I'm glad to see my favorite entry, Fallout New Vegas, start to see some traction again, since it's clearly the best in the series, and whatever entry you're thinking of is wrong. Sorry, I don't make the rules, I just follow them. And of course, like any good New Vegas enjoyer, I chose the Mr. House ending, mostly because the NCR wants me to pay taxes, Caesar's Legion don't wear pants, and something about a robot that says yes to everything just doesn't really sit right with me. But you know, jokes aside, I really do love New Vegas as an entry, with the Sierra Madre Casino or the Dead Money DLC, an expansion that's arguably the best New Vegas has to offer, being my personal favorite story that's actually told in New Vegas. And it's easy to see why I remembered it so fondly, because you see, it teaches you the lesson of learning to let go and move on, and that things like greed and power can corrupt your very soul, and that in the end, it's just not worth it. Unless, like me, you already had it up to here with the casino and the bullshit ghost security, saw the vault and all its gold and said to hell with the lesson it was trying to teach me, and proceeded to make it your mission to leave the casino drained. But that's neither here nor there. The point is being that it's really cool to see the show bring in so many new audiences. I mean, hey, even games like Fallout 76 are starting to see traction again. Ain't that wild though? Alright though, back to the content. But overall, the Fallout show was a really good watch, and me personally, I'm not gonna grill the inconsistencies until a proper season 2 is released, because who knows, maybe all these issues will be fixed. But if I had to give it overall score to the TV show, I think it deserves a high 8 to 9 out of 10, you know, because overall, I did enjoy the show, the effects, the writing, the storytelling, even though it brings up some interesting questions. Overall, I really did enjoy it, and I think you would too. So why don't you go grab your Pip-Boy, grab some Radaway, and head out into the wasteland yourself. See you there.